Since becoming Prime Minister of India in 2014, Narendra Modi has used his popularity and his position to move in an increasingly authoritarian direction. He's launched a full-scale assault on the basic pluralistic, multi-religious foundational principles of a democratic India enshrined by Gandhi and the Congress Party. Modi has unilaterally revoked a part of the Indian constitution that gave autonomy and self-determination to Kashmir, India's only Muslim-majority state. He sent in troops, put it under curfew and surveillance, cut off access to the internet in certain areas for months. In a country of 1.3 billion people, Modi has pushed for things like citizenship registries meant to disenfranchise much of the country's 200 million Muslims. And now, in the most brazen move yet, he has pushed through passage of a law that would provide citizenship for immigrants of literally every religious minority except Muslims. That law has provoked massive protests around the country. And for more, I'm joined by Suketu Mehta, Associate Professor of Journalism at NYU, author of This Land is Our Land, An Immigrant's Manifesto, originally from India, and Dexter Filkins, staff writer for The New Yorker, who recently visited India and published a piece on his investigation, Blood and Soil in Narendra Modi's India, which is a phenomenal read. Suketu, let me start with you as someone who was in India, came to the U.S., went back to write an incredible book about it there, who gave a speech about Modi just a few months ago in India. This citizenship law, which seems just so cut and dried, explicitly bigoted, has provoked some kind of reaction in India that we hadn't seen yet. What's going on with that?
So for the first time in independent India's history, there's been a law which has a specific religious test. So as you mentioned, citizens of persecuted minorities in Afghanistan, Pakistan and Bangladesh can come into India as long as they're not Muslim. And this has never really happened in independent India, and it failed through parliament without much protest. Then an interesting thing started happening. Young people in universities started protesting. And now it's all across the country. I mean, the protests are led by the young, but along with other measures that the government wants to put forward, like a national registry of citizens. They want Indians to produce documentary evidence that they're citizens. And anyone who's been to India knows how hard it is to get any kind of documents out of a government office. So the idea is the messaging at all levels, whether it's Kashmir, whether it's the Citizenship Act, whether it's this National Register of Citizens, is to send a message to the country's 200 million Muslims. This is a Hindu country. You're here by our sufferance. That's why I think it's the gravest threat to India since the founding of its democracy.
Dexter, before protests over the citizenship law, there was the move on Kashmir, and obviously that's been contested territory for a very long time, since before partition, post-partition. You filed an incredible story for The New Yorker where you went with an Indian journalist there to document what it was like. And what has Modi done in Kashmir?
Well, I think what's so depressing about what we saw, and as you mentioned, we snuck in. I mean, foreigners are prohibited, so I just managed. I got on an airplane and kind of put on a local costume, and I got through. But what is most remarkable about it is that when you pick up most Indian newspapers or you turn on the television, they tell you everything's fine. It's normal. Like, everybody supports this, and Kashmir's fine. Go home. And what we found is that it's essentially an open-air prison. The people are cut off from the rest of the country. There's no internet. There's no telephones. They're cut off from each other. There are soldiers everywhere. They're on every street corner. It is a really, really grim situation. I mean, I was there for about a little less than a week, and just personally, I was going crazy because it was so claustrophobic and so intense and really fearful. And so they've locked it down, and I think I got a really bad feeling when I was there. It was creepy, and I've seen a lot of bad things, and gave me a bad feeling. I don't know where that's going, but it's not good. And so these demonstrations have actually been kind of encouraging, because it's really extraordinary to see the Indians rise up.
Yeah, so there's two things happening here. I mean, one is this sort of vision of Hindu supremacy, India as a sort of ethno-religious state, fundamentally, like India for Hindus, which is obviously at odds with what Gandhi literally gave his life to avoid. Right. And then also this authoritarian turn a little bit, control, like pressure on the media, pressure on academics in the universities. We've seen some arrests in universities. How much have you seen Modi sort of moving in these illiberal directions, Suketu?
Well, it really has been an all-out war against intellectuals, against people who are dissenters in any form. It's you see this on social media. I mean, I'm sure my Twitter feed is lighting up right now with people who are saying, I'm a traitor to India. I've had this kind of experience before when I've given other talks about the situation. It's a kind of weaponizing of this Hindu card, the idea that there are all these countries, and different religions have their different countries. India should be for Hindus, you know. And now these people were always there throughout independent India's history, but now they're in power, and Modi just got elected with a thumping majority. But you know, the issue is that the economy is really in the toilet. Modi claims to have built tens of millions of toilets. He's actually dragged the economy into the toilet. Unemployment is at a 45-year high. The growth rate went from 7% last year to 4.5% this year. So some of this is meant as a means of distraction from the terrible performance in the economy.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.